Hello? I made him. Oh my god, hey you guys! I totally made Freddy from Five Nights at Freddy's, and oh my god, he's right here, whoa. Please consider the fact that I have no experience at all when it comes to cosplay, like making costumes. Yeah, it's pretty fucking hard, because in the beginning, he definitely did not look like Freddy at all. Here he looks more like Freddy. Hopefully the finished product, because he's not finished, but hopefully the very finished product, he will look a lot more like Freddy. Watch how I made Freddy. Yeah, let's do this. Fuck yeah. Okay, so right now I'm prepping the plaster, cutting it up into strips, getting ready to put it on the head. Now the bottom part of the head is just a big old plaster ball that I made from a Walmart Bouncy Ball. You know, the big ones in the racks. I just covered it in a few layers of plaster. I talk about that just a little bit more in the Chica video. Now the part on the top is a styrofoam half circle, and I got that at Michael's, and I'm putting them together to elongate the head and make it look more Freddy-like. Now the first layer of plaster that you see me putting on is just the first layer. It's just to stabilize it and make it stuck together. I'm going to be adding a second layer to make it look nicer and smoother and just all around better. Oh yeah, by the way, in case you were wondering, the kind of money that you would need to make this plaster Five Nights at Freddy's head would probably be around $200 to $250. Now, I know what you're thinking, where the heck, where, why, how? And I'll tell you one thing, a lot of it goes to the plaster. The plaster costs a lot, and you're gonna need multiple packs of it, so that's where it really racks up. Alright you guys, this is what we have so far. I took the initiative and decided to draw Freddy's face on there so I know where everything goes. Right now he does not look like Freddy, he looks like Mr. Potato Head with the top hat, but now we're getting somewhere, and we have made progress. Now I just want to let you know that the top of his head was not plastered and I kept it as styrofoam, and because of that, the top of his head is a little bit more vulnerable. I did this because I wanted to make this head as light as I possibly can. Now if you want to go ahead and plaster the top of this head in case you're making your own, be my guest and you'll feel very much secure, but you will add weight to this head. Also, the area where I put the plaster to keep those two parts together is very vulnerable. We will later on thicken that part up in the video, but for now, it's pretty risky business. Alright, so I'm going to be using this styrofoam plate, along with a bigger styrofoam plate, along with two styrofoam balls that are going to be used for his jowls. Okay, so this is me and my friend Robert, and we're putting styrofoam on the face to bring out the shape to later cover in plaster. Now this was really hard and I really needed somebody to help me out on this because I need somebody else's second opinion. Because without Robert telling me what was up, I probably would have gotten the whole face wrong. But yeah, so right now we're gluing on the cheekbones, we just glued on the jowls. Next I'm just going to put on the lower lip. Remember that when you put on the lower lip, you have to like kind of put it at an angle so the mouth will look like it's opening, you know, because I want him to have that kind of face where Freddy jump scared you, like when he kills you, you know. Right there I'm putting on his ears. It wasn't until I put on his ears that I realized they were a little bit too long. I cut them short a little bit later, but right now he looks like some sort of alien Shrek person. So yeah. Right there, I'm plastering on strips of plaster to make sure that the styrofoam stays in place. And then we're going to cover it up and it'll look more like Freddy and not like a freak. Okay, so this is what we have of him so far. Now we have his cheekbones, his jowls, his lower jaw, and his ears. Now, the thing about his lower jaw that we're going to have to talk about is that I ended up adding two little pieces to make the ends of his jaw go upwards because that's how it looks like, sort of, you know? So I just went ahead and did that off camera. You can go ahead and see it when I fix it up a little bit later on in the video, but that's what happened. So this is me here alone, and I am just plastering on the nose. Now this part was particularly hard because I had to try to stretch the plaster across the gap between the two styrofoam balls and make it look like it was one piece instead of 2 styrofoam balls, and it was a little tricky. It took me a little bit longer than expected, but I got through it and it ended up looking pretty well. One thing to remember about the nose jowl thingamajigger is that you have to flatten it on certain sides. One side you have to flatten it so that it could glue onto that flat surface of the head, and the other side you have to flatten so that it doesn't cover up Freddy's eyes, because if it covers up Freddy's eyes, then the whole thing just looks even more off. Oh boy, you can't forget that under part. No cutting corners here, because that would make life way too easy. Okay, so right here, I'm drawing out the head hole, but I'm just letting you know that I went back to it off camera and I made it a little bit bigger, just so that just because I wanted to, really, honestly, just because I wanted to. So right now, I'm going to be plastering the cheekbones. I've already covered the jowls and the lower jaw. Also, I added a little nose off camera. You can see it right there. Now, watch carefully what I'm doing with these cheekbones. I can't really explain it. I'm putting plaster over it in a way that stretches it out. This is how the cheekbone shape is made, and it obviously looks very lumpy, not lumpy, but pointy, and it shouldn't look like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and fix that, but this is how I made the cheekbones. Alright, so keep in mind that when I do this to the cheekbones, I'm not going to be using just one layer. In fact, it would be pretty wise to probably have 3 or even 4 layers of plaster, because you could so easily just press your thumb in that area and cave the whole thing in, and then you have to redo the cheekbones. So it's best to add more than a few layers, and you'll be pretty set once the plaster completely dries and it could hold its own. Okay, so now at this point we have the jowls, the lower lip, and the cheekbones done. So it's best to just stop, take a small break, and just look over those areas one more time and just touch everything up and make sure that everything's sturdy. Feel around if there's any weak spots that you feel like you can cave in if you press your finger on it too hard, you know, and just make sure that it looks okay. Oh, right there I'm coloring in the nose just because, you know, it looks cute. Now that everything looks okay and you went over it all and it's dapper and dandy, I went ahead and I plastered in the little ear stubby thingies, which also ended up being too long, so I cut them in half and then glued on the ears, you know, in the future, and they still ended up being too long, so I just cut them off entirely and just glued on the ears, and it ended up looking pretty good. But you know, you could honestly get away with the stubbies. Okay, so right there I was cutting off pieces to make the lower jaw come up a bit, because that's what Freddy's jaw looks like. Oh, there's my cat. Did you see her? She was right there. Okay, you guys, just on a personal note, I swear my cat loved to bother me while I was making this, and she would always try to drink like the little bowl of water that I had laid out for the plaster, but she can't drink it because she's silly. She's not supposed to drink it. It's poison because it's got plaster dust in it. So I think it was at this point that I was waiting for the cheekbones to dry to add another layer, so I decided to reinforce the back of Freddy's head by adding more layers of plaster, which was actually really good timing because I really needed that, and the back of Freddy's head was pretty freaking fragile. So I went ahead and I fixed that, so everything ended up falling into place pretty well. Okay, so this is our progress so far. I've covered the cheekbones, the jowls, the lower jaw, and I still need to do the ears, but so far it's coming together pretty spiffy, so I'm pretty confident at this point. Oh man, okay, fast forward. Okay, so Freddy has ears now, and they're a lot more shorter because I had fixed them, because with long ears he looks like Foxy. Now you saw that I had popped the plastic ball inside the plaster head, and now I'm cutting out Freddy's new head hole. Now when you cut out the new head hole, it's gonna be pretty rigid and fragile and easily breakable, so you're gonna have to get more strips of plaster and reinforce it. Now, the new edges of this head hole are going to be very uneven, and that's very common because nobody is perfect. So once you're done with your first layer of the plaster strips, go ahead and feel around on the edges and pick out your weakest parts of the head hole and just add more plaster to make it sturdier and more even. After I made everything pretty even on my head hole, I decided to cut out the hole in Freddy's mouth so that you could see through it. Now I kind of messed up and it kind of looks a little bit like a smile, but that's okay. So it was at this point that I decided that Freddy's cheeks stuck out too much and he doesn't have a fat face. So I decided to carve out giant squares out of his face, which I totally thought was going to be a really ballsy move, but I thought, hey, you know what, anything to make him look more like Freddy. So this is what I did, and it seemed to work out pretty well. By the way, we've already burned through 3 packs of plaster, which are $9.99 each, which is not including the big plaster ball that we started out with. Another note, I added definitely more than 1 layer to the sunken in cheeks as well as the cheekbones. So however many layers you decided to put on your cheekbones, do the same with your sunken in cheeks, because they're seriously just floating there and there's nothing to stop your thumb from crushing it and ruining it. When working on the sunken cheeks, please be sure to try to keep both cheeks as evenly sunken in as possible. It is so easy to mess up on this, and I actually did, and I had to try to add more layers on one cheek to try to even it out from the other cheek, and it was just a really big hassle. So just try to keep track of that, because I did it kind of carelessly. But yeah, you know, I learned from it that you gotta be on top of your crap. You can't see it right there, it's a bad angle, but just letting you know, I'm just putting in the other sunken in cheekbone on the other side. Okay, so since everything is pretty much completed, I went ahead and I smoothed out any rough edges on the head using an ordinary kitchen knife. Now, sandpaper would work just as well, but ain't nobody got time for that, so I just used a knife. Be sure that when you do this, wear a mask, because you don't want to breathe in any of that plaster dust. It's really good to know that all of my hard work will pay off by giving me nightmares later tonight. Oh my god. Okay, so thank you guys for watching this video. It took me about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks to finish this Freddy head, and I am so exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally somehow. Whoops, this is a 2-part video. Oh my god, Freddy's not complete. You think this is done? This isn't done. We still have the felt or paint, and we have the helmet to put inside. So whoops, this is a 2-part video. What are you gonna do? The video will probably come out in about a week and a half, probably 2 weeks. And I'm actually going to be giving away this Freddy head to anybody who subscribes, likes, and comments something positive. So keep your eye out for that video that comes out, because I do not want this Freddy head in my house. I do not want it at all. That sounded weird. I do not want it in this house. I do not want it with a mouse. Freddy looks really good, and I'm proud that I made him, and I love him, you know, really cool. But it's pretty freaking scary to have at night. I already have Chica right down my hallway, and she's enough for me, you know, so I gotta get rid of this Freddy head. So keep an eye out for the new video, because it might be coming your way and haunt you in your sleep. Let me know if you're going to be making your own Freddy head, and please feel free to ask any questions at all, and I'll be happy to answer them. Alright, so I guess that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Oh, bye-bye. Oh, bye-bye now. Bye-bye.